Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us on the Field Crops Virtual Breakfast. We really appreciate it. Today we have Dean Boss on. He's our Sustainable Ag Educator at MSU Extension, and he's going to be discussing cover crops for preventive planting, forage, and options following wheat. So, Dean, with that, please take it away.
Okay, thanks, Monica. As Monica said, we got a lot going on this year with the wet spring that we had. We've got preventative planting, we've got emergency forage issues, and now we're rapidly approaching, if not already, following wheat harvest. And so I want to talk a little bit about cover crops, try to cover all those topics in the brief time that I have. So we're going to get going here. We've had the challenges, preventative planting, forage shortages. We've got a later wheat harvest. We've got cover crop opportunities that should be considered as part of strategy to address these challenges. I want to point out, particularly on the prevented planting, MSU has a number of resources. There is a delayed planting website. I'm not going to read you the address for those of you who aren't on computer. Do a Google search on delayed planting, Michigan State University, and it will pop right up the link to that site. We also have resources concerning cover crops and delayed planting, cover crops in general, and that's on covercrops.msu.edu. If you can't remember that, again, if you type in cover crops, Michigan State University, that will be right at the top of the search as well. On the cover crop site, we have recommendations for cover crops for prevented planting, and also directions on corn and soybeans as cover crops, which we're going to talk about a little bit here in a minute. If you have prevented planting acres, we'd really like farmers to consider cover crops on these acres. We really want to avoid further soil degradation, and if you put cover crops on there, there's an opportunity to improve your soil resiliency in the future. Hopefully, getting some root growth, root passages will give you the capacity to take that water a little bit more in the future. The period following preventive planting is really an opportunity to benefit from cover crops because you can take advantage of a longer cover crop growing season than we traditionally can in Michigan. We typically have the longer season after wheat, but a lot of these preventive planting acres are corn and soybeans. And we really have a short window after corn and soybeans to get cover crops growing and take advantage of them in the fall. So if you have been unable to plant your corn or soybean acres, you've really got a nice growing period where you can build some biomass. And there's a lot of benefits. We definitely want the protection from wind and water erosion. You have an opportunity to increase soil organic matter, get some additional soil organic matter in larger quantities than you can traditionally after corn and soybeans. Anything you can do with cover crops that help to improve soil structure will increase the soil permeability and ultimately increase water holding capacity. Also, we want to reduce nutrient losses. If you've got some nutrients on those fields, we want to keep them there and improve the soil biological activity by building some carbon. And you do have an opportunity if you use some legumes to build some soil nitrogen. So there's a lot of benefits using cover crops, and we really want to encourage people to consider your goals if you are going to put cover crops on prevented planting acres so that you can get the most bang for your buck. I want to talk about some of the risk management agency adjustments that have come this year. They announced change to haying and grazing date for prevented planting acres planted to a cover crop. They determined that silage, haylage, and baleage should be treated in the same manner as haying and grazing for this year. Producers can hay, graze, or cut cover crops for silage, haylage, or baleage on prevented planting acres, and they moved up the date to on or after September 1 instead of November 1. And that will still maintain eligibility for full 2019 prevented planting indemnity. If you have a need for forage or you have a neighbor who has a need for forage, the Risk Management Association has made adjustments for that. And they have done this because of the shortage in forage. So that was their sole reason for doing this. And this adjustment has been made for 2019 only. This has brought up some questions from people. They said, okay, so I can grow cover crop as forage, can corn and soybeans be grown as cover crops on prevented planting acres and be harvested for forage? And RMA has said yes, the cover crop may be the same crop prevented from planting and may still retain eligibility for prevented planting payment if recognized as agronomically sound by agricultural experts. MSU Extension is considered one of the agricultural experts, and we issued guidance through an article on June 25th where we recognized corn and soybeans as agronomically sound for cover crops on prevented planting acres in Michigan. And further, we recommend that the seeding rates be in the range of 28 to 40,000 seeds per acre based on your soil type, 30-inch rows or less spacing, fertility to meet biomass and forage goals, and herbicides and pesticides for weed and insect control. That's for corn. For soybeans, a minimum seeding rate of 150,000 seeds per acre. Again, 30-inch rows or less spacing. Less is preferred on soybeans if possible, but we're not requiring it. And herbicides and insecticides for weed and insect control. The goal here, and we felt as a group, is to produce good forage, that we did not want to put a bunch of restrictions around farmers while they tried to do that. We want to follow your best practices, the things that you already are doing to produce forage, because we are in a forage shortage situation. The second question that came up was, if a cover crop is harvested on or after September 1, can the insured sell the forage? And yes, if a cover crop is harvested on or after September 1, the insured can use or sell the forage and receive a full prevented planting payment provided all other policy provisions have been met. So what it comes down to is you can grow corn or soybeans as a cover crop on prevented planting acres. You can harvest it as forage, and you can sell it. And it, provided you meet all the other provisions of your policy, you should be able to get full crop insurance on that. So the other discussion there's been a lot about is it a cover crop or is it a forage? There's people going back and forth feeling that there's really a difference there. And my feeling on this is it's both. Biomass is the goal, whether it's a cover crop or a forage. The difference is, if you're going to grow the cover crop as a forage, you need to consider the quality of that forage. And there's additional guidance on emergency forages, and that's available on the MSU Extension Forages website. And you can get direction on emergency hay and forage crops, and you can use that direction as you're considering a cover crop as forage or a forage as a cover crop. I don't really think that it makes that's just a matter of how you want to define it. Again, if you type into Google search MSU Extension Forages, you'll find that website right at the top of the list, and you can go check that out. When it comes to a cover crop, though, fall residue is still important. So I really encourage folks, if you are harvesting the cover crop as a forage, to do it as soon as possible on or after September 1st to allow for regrowth. We want that regrowth to give us the residue in the fall to protect for erosion. Some other considerations on cover crops as forages: we recommend that producers review their herbicide programs and seed treatments for livestock feeding restrictions when considering cover crops, including corn and soybeans, as emergency forages. Make sure that, particularly your herbicide program, that you don't have restrictions that prevent you from using that as a forage. And also consult with, if you're using GMO seed, consult with your seed contract, the seed dealer, to ensure that your seed can be used as a cover crop. There may be some restrictions there. Additionally, in whatever you're considering doing with these cropping plans on prevented planting acres, make sure you consult your Farm Service Agency and crop insurer, just to make sure that everybody's clear on what you're doing and that it's allowed and that it's not going to get you into a problem with your prevented planting payment. The crop insurance companies are aware of the guidance from MSU and should be able to work with you on that situation. So where do we stand on cover crops at this time? Really, regardless of the situation, we're at the period of time where you really want to follow the recommendations for cover crops after wheat. Even if you're not planting them after wheat, this is the time period. If you haven't planted them yet and going to be planting cover crops, look at cover crops after wheat. For those of you who are on the phone, you can't see this, but we have a table in our cover crops for prevented planting that gives the recommendations, things like annual ryegrass, barley, oats, rye, wheat, sorghum, sudan grass, all of those types of things are options. You're going to want to check your seed supply. There are some things that are in short supply, so you may have to go with what's available. We give the benefits of each. And again, I encourage people to consider the goals. Why do what benefits can you get on the field that you're considering using the cover crops on? Also, I want to recommend that people go to the Midwest Cover Crop Council Cover Crop Decision Tool, and that's at mccc.msu.edu. You can get better guidance on planting windows for different cover crops. Put in Michigan, your county, and it will give you a list of cover crops and planting dates. We have cover crop resources. Like I said, the cover crop website, Midwest Cover Crop Council. There's a Midwest Cover Crop Field Guide, and the Sustainable Ag Research and Education cover program has a lot of cover crop resources. And finally, we have the MSU cover crop team. If you go to the cover crop website, you can find the list of that team, and all of us are available to answer your questions. It's our job, so feel free to contact us. Also want to remind people again about the delayed planting resources and the upcoming Agricultural Innovation Day, which is next week on Friday at MSU. The focus on precision technology that pays is the topic. So thank you for attending. We can take some questions.
Thank you, Dean. Do we have any questions?
We have a question in the chat box concerning soybean cyst nematode trap crop. Basically, Defender is going to act like any other oilseed radish as far as the depth of roots. So it really depends on when you plant it. If you plant it early, it has a greater chance of getting to flowering, although this time of year, we're kind of on the border on that.
Okay, yeah.
So you'll get a smaller root. If you plant it later, you'll get a bigger root. There's been a lot of discussion about oilseed radish and plugging tile lines. I don't believe that oilseed radish has any more is any more prone to plugging tile lines than any other cover crop. Typically, where we have problems with roots plugging tile lines, we already have a problem with the tile system at that point. Usually it's a low point in the tile where there's standing water, and the roots find that standing water and plug the tiles. People tend to blame oilseed radish a lot for that. I don't know. I don't really have any evidence that oilseed radish is any worse than anything else for that problem. If anybody else has some insight into that, I would encourage them to jump into the discussion. Neighbor to the west is currently growing sugar beets, and field has winter wheat. I really do not know how far soybean cyst nematodes travel. So as far as how wide of an area along the property line to plant the trap crop, I would probably plant, at least a pretty good strip, maybe 50, 100 foot wide.
Chris Stefanzo is on. I guess, Chris, if you have any input onto those couple questions, that would be great about the soybean cyst nematode traps along the wood edge. How wide should they be?
Actually, they're asking about sugar beets, not soybeans.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I would encourage
SBCN, sugar beet cyst nematode.
I would encourage them to contact Dr. Marisol Quintanilla.
Yeah.
I mean, nematodes don't move. They're not like running across the field or something. I mean,
right.
they're slow movers, and of course, moving soil and water movement as soil would probably be way that they get moved most rapidly. But I can't really speak to this, so.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, and I apologize. That is sugar beet cyst nematode. There's SBSB and.
Not everything's about soybeans. My bad.
But of course, as with all nematodes, like Chris said, they don't move much. But sanitation is critical. That's equipment movement and is probably equipment movement and product movement I mean, that's how the sugar beet cyst nematode got started, right? With the wash water in Germany, and they didn't realize, and they were moving nematode as they were transporting water movement, trying to save water, whatnot. So that's what's true for pretty much all nematodes.
And this question is about a trap crop. So if this were insects, insects fly, and they can fly a considerable distance to go accumulate onto a trap crop. In this case, he wants to plant a trap crop along an edge, with a neighbor. And if they're not like going from your neighbor and flying across. So when I think about a trap crop for cyst nematode, I think about it kind of for the hatching of the nematode. So it's in place, almost like the whole field or something.
Yes, but you're cultivating, and when you cultivate, that's when the movement can occur.
Well, hearing no more questions, and since we're past our time, I want to thank everyone for getting on and attending today. If you could please follow that link in the chat box and give us some feedback, we'd greatly appreciate it. Otherwise, we hope to see you at the Ag Innovation Field Day, which is next Friday, and also on our call next Thursday. Thank you again.